Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here, and today you are in for a treat as we continue our interview series on the Giant Killer. And in today's interview, Danny details the exact diet and training program he undertook in preparation for the 1981 Mr. Olympia, where without a doubt he appeared with the most ripped physique on stage, to the point where nobody could even recognize him. Without further delay, here is Danny Padilla, and mind you, this was also our first face-to-face interview over Skype, so please excuse my emotional state, but I was literally talking for the first time face-to-face with one of my all-time favorite Golden Era bodybuilders. Enjoy! And I mean, you're just such a legend. Yeah, sorry, bit starstruck here.
Don't get emotional on me.
Nah, all good. All right. So I recently listened to your I don't know whether you're aware of it. John Hansen. You spoke to him a while ago.
Yeah, he got a hold of me, and he's been trying to get a hold of me for 2 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And then finally he caught me, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give you a couple minutes here, and then we got to go. So I think I made his day.
Yeah. You went through some awesome stuff, and to be honest, I kind of want to ask further some questions in regards to what you spoke to him about. Firstly, so I will be honest, and this has got to do a bit, obviously, with the Mr. Olympia, which we talked about recently.
Right.
So I wanted to talk about the 1981 Mr. Olympia, where you pretty much presented the most ripped physique on stage, right?
Correct.
And my question there is, when would you have started your pre-contest routine of the double split that you talked about that you performed 3 times a week?
I would have started that the first week. I would have done basic training, each body part twice a week. I would do that for like 2-3 weeks. And then about 10 weeks out of the show, instead of dieting real hard, I'd rather do a split routine where I could eat pretty much what I want, but good meals, and then work the body part 3 times a week. So obviously you're going to burn a lot of calories, so you can't be in starvation mode to do that. And that back in the day when Arnold and us guys would do that, it allowed us to eat a little more and still be able to do a tough routine where we had the micronutrients needed to train and to recover. But also remember that during that time, I would devote most of my time to training. And I was blessed because my dad owned a business. We had a small business, mom and pop store. So I was able to work the hours necessary, but also able to get my training in with nobody being pissed off because you're missing work.
Okay. So, because from what I recall, you said you would have done that double split, maybe a month before from your conversation.
Yeah, during this time, though, I was doing a lot of experimenting. So a month before a regular show, this was the Olympia. So I was doing a lot of different stuff that I'd never done before. For instance, I had a higher carbohydrate load with less protein, whereas everybody's like, no way, you got to have all this protein. But, I was doing some experimenting, and I was involved with some experts on, nutrition who were pretty smart people. And so I was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. For example, I would jog from my dad's store to my mother's house, which was easily 15 miles. And then I would ride a bike back. But then I would have 30 cups of yogurt. So, you know what I'm saying? I didn't care about food. Whatever I wanted, I ate.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an experiment. So I decided that I was going to do a couple months of a double split, maybe 3 months, with the idea of eating and doing some aerobics. I didn't care. I ate a lot of food. I had a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, and then I was consuming about 100 to 110 grams of protein a day.
Right.
But because I had enough carbohydrates, that protein was going to what it needed. Now, mind you, I wasn't lifting heavy weights. I was pumping. So I didn't, I still was pretty good weight for what I was doing. But for me, as you watch the guys today, or even back in my day, most of us guys used to lift a little heavy off season, to get that little bit of bulk and
Hmm.
then carve it up. So
Right.
this was a little different to Stadium Olympia. And, I had gotten calls from some Top Gun saying, we're not going because the show's fixed. And I basically said, I don't care about the show. I get to see Franco, who was my hero.
Hmm.
He's tremendous physique, and I get to just have fun and compete against him. The worst I could do is lose. And
Yeah.
so I said, but I will be so cut, nobody will recognize me. And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I mean. So you've talked about your diet being fairly moderate in protein, but basically high in carbs. Would you be able to estimate how high your carb intake was?
I couldn't even tell you. It was hundreds of carbs.
Yeah.
I mean, I sat down one time. They had a low sugar yogurt, which was probably about 6 ounces, and one time I had like 25 of them. I was so hungry. I didn't care. And so I
Wow.
would eat. I would have baked potatoes. I would have brown rice with beans. So I
Wow.
never really counted calories. My body was my clock. It would say, you're hungry, you need to eat. And so I
Mm.
wouldn't overdo it, but I would eat till I felt comfortable.
Hmm.
And if 2 or 3 hours later it happened again, then I would do it. So I
Yeah.
really couldn't say I ate 12 meals. Some days I ate 6, 7 meals. Some days I only had 4 meals.
Would you say then that you judged as well your progress by just looking at the mirror because you were in this experimental
You know
phase?
what? I never looked at the mirror. I just trained. And I let everybody else tell me how it looked. And that was about, I really didn't look till the last 4 to 3 weeks where I knew
Okay.
it was time to home in now and decide, all right, now I've done all this running. I stopped all the running. I stopped the biking. I would do like a mile only at the track. And then I started cutting down the workouts where I went from about 21 days out. I got off that triple split routine and went to a double split because
Hmm.
as I started controlling the calories, really counting the calories, then I was weaker, and there was no way I was going to do each body part 3 times a week. I would
Yeah.
just, I would disappear. So I knew better than that, and
Hmm.
that's when I started cutting down.
Right. Um, so what about before we go to the 3 weeks before and then the 1 week before? What about the proteins you ate? Was it mostly fish and chicken, or did you cut
I
out red
started
meat?
with it was usually fish and chicken, a lot of it, and then once in a while, like one meal or a week, I would throw some beef in there to keep up the body weight because you
Yep.
need a little bit of fat.
Yep.
Because so, but it was mostly chicken and fish.
Awesome. So you said that you started controlling the calories about 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks before.
Correct.
What were your macros like then?
Okay, I started 21 days out. I started at 3,000 calories.
Hmm.
So, and I was burning it up. Excuse me. So then when I started cutting down the workout, I went down to 2,500 calories.
Hmm.
Now remember, I'm not 6'8", so uh, that for me, for my body, was a lot of calories. But little by little, I would teach the body to go hungry
Hmm.
and not get carried away with the hunger. So the the 3,000 was easy. 2,500 started to get tough, and then 2,000. When I went down to 2,000 is when I started seeing the big changes,
Hmm.
the changes that I was looking for. Because then I started looking. Now I said, let me look to see what I look like.
Yeah.
So, and what happens is you're on a mission, because my thought process was, what's the mission? I need to go into this show and look the best I've ever looked, different. So what happens is you get carried away sometimes. I'm not cut enough. And that's the phase that I went through. I remember
Yeah.
distinctly the last 2 weeks, I went down to 1,500 calories, okay? And then about 8 days before the show, I went down to 1,000 to 900 calories. But obviously, I wasn't working out, okay? I was just walking around, working in a store, drinking a lot of water, and starving. I mean, my dad would say, "Oh my God, what are you doing? Why you do this? What kind of sport is this?" He was totally against it. But, and then he'd say, you do all this crap to be in your underwears on stage. What kind of poses, what kind of, so he didn't understand. But he supported me. Without him, there'd be no Giant Killer, because he always supported me. He'd say, I'm not happy with it, but if this is what you want to do, and thinking of my dad, somebody was talking to me the other day about it. And he said, how the hell did you make it? And I said, well, I was blessed. I had a good mother and father. We had a business where I can come in and work when I needed to. And I worked hard many, many weeks. But during that time, they gave me a little time to do what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I said, my dad was the kind of person that I'll never forget going to Madison Square Garden. I won my height, and I won the whole show, and I won most muscular, and I come home with all these big trophies. And he'd say to me, son, wow, that's pretty. How much money did you make? I said, not too much. He goes, well, you could put them on top of the cooler there, and let's get going. Mop the floor. We got to get going here. So that was his attitude. But yeah, so he was very important in that last aspect. So the last week is where I saw the most dramatic changes, because I starved.
Yeah.
I had pretty good amount of muscle, and I was eating very low calories, and I split the calories. So 1,000 calories. I did 500 carbs, 500 protein. I split it up.
And what would your breakfast, lunch, and dinner be like?
Breakfast for me would be a half a cup of farina with 3 peaches and half a cup of egg whites, something of that nature. And then for lunch would just be chicken and some salad, just plain old salad, chew on it, and then water, and then a third meal, and then at night I refused to eat. So from 10 o'clock till 6 in the morning when I would get up, it was brutal. But I adjusted. The body got used to it. It was almost like a fast. And the first 48 hours, I could have probably eaten a human being. But then after 48 hours, I adjusted, and I was okay.
Yeah.
So it taught me how your body will adjust.
So you said your breakfast was half a cup of farina, peaches, and egg whites.
Right.
Your lunch was a chicken and salad.
Chicken and salad, and then a snack in between might be one egg.
One egg?
Boiled egg. And then for dinner would be a can of tuna and some salad. And the tuna, I would get like 6 ounces, 6.5 ounces. So you had a lot of protein there compared to what I was doing. But you were still starving. And then you had to drink your water. And a blessed cup of coffee in the morning. I had to have that.
Absolutely.
So, you're fasting. And back then I got away with it. I was young. Today I wouldn't even attempt to try that. I'm too old and tired. In fact, when I get young people that come to me and says, oh, you're old school, it's not the same. I said, son, it's all the same. It's just a little bit more of the same crap we did.
So you've mentioned your diet for the week before. Did that change even the last couple of days? Did you carb up? Or?
What happened was I starved all the way up to that Saturday. And then Sunday came, I stayed on the diet. And Monday came, I stayed on pretty low carb, it was 1,000 calories or so. And I was depleted. I mean, I really was depleted. And so I decided on a Tuesday, I believe it was a Tuesday, I'm going to eat up. I need to gain some weight. And I started eating up. And the first thing I had was a bran muffin with butter and jelly. And this bran muffin in my dad's cooler was old and had a little mold on it. I knocked the mold off and I ate it anyways. And my buddy Larry Baker said, are you nuts? He goes, well, I'm starving. I got to eat. And once I did that, it's like the body exploded. The more I ate, the more cut I got. And it was weird. It was like the thermostat came on. And I was sweating and I just kept eating. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I carved up. So all these things that you see on the internet, oh, Danny weighed 160 pounds. His face was caved in. I weighed 178. Nobody weighed me. I weighed myself. I know what I weighed. But I was shredded. And the problem for me is when I get on these diets, my face caves in and I ain't got no butt, no rear end. Those are the 2 places that go. And then I did vacuum shots. And when you do vacuum shots, you got to suck the air in. You suck the air, your face caves in. Now it looked even worse because you can see my cheekbones. But what I will say is they never posted the great photos of me. They only posted photos that made me look not too good because it was an embarrassment. People got up and walked out of that show. Once they called me fifth, they booed, threw stuff, got up and walked out. So by the time you got to Franco, who it's not his fault, basically, he's just competing, the place was empty. The only people there were, Ben, whoever was awarding the trophy, and I think a couple of us walked off, and it was just him and Tom Platz and Chris, I think. And in fact, Wild World of Sports, I believe, was filming. They stopped filming. You never saw it. They have a film of this. Where is it? We never got to see it. The only video that you'll see out there is Franco's own homemade video of his Olympia, of the trial and tribulations. Was, you know what? I'm not going to get mad at him for that. He's smart. He did the right thing. So, and again, people say, "Oh, I love Franco. I met him. He was a good guy, tremendous powerhouse, tremendous physique, and for me, it was about an honor to compete with him and against him. That's what I was about. I wasn't about I'm going to crush him. I just wanted to be on that stage against one of the best of my height and weight, and I thought I did okay.
Yeah, you did great.
A lot of people say you're too little. You're bullshit. You look at the real, true photos. There was enough body there to fight, and to get fifth was a disgrace, and to be the lowest for symmetry and balance was a disgrace. So something went wrong there.
Yeah.
And, you never heard me cry about it, though. You have never once heard me come out, because I used to say, guess what? It's bodybuilding, it's a contest, and you put yourself in the position of being judged. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And then you move on to the next show. So I didn't have time to cry it over spilled milk. What am I going to do? Oh, say Frankel's this or this sucks. You never heard me say a word. I just said, you know what? I competed. I got beat. Obviously, I wasn't good enough. And I moved forward. And that was it.
Yeah. You mentioned that when you carved up those last 4 days, you went up to 178. So then my question is, when you were on the 1,000 calorie for a week or so, how low did you get in body weight? And then
my body weight dropped all the way down to 154.
Wow. So within 4 days, you put on
right up
24 pounds.
Easily.
Whoa.
But you got to remember, a lot of that's water, but the muscle the muscle was there. It just got filled with what it needed. So look I was like Arnold. Arnold and I could walk in the gym looking small. Give us 30 minutes, you'll say, what the hell is that? We blew up like balloons. That's who we were. Like when Arnold came in for his Olympia and he came in, they said, there's no way he's going to get ready for the Olympia. And I laughed. I said, he'll be there. He'll be ready. And there he was. Was he the Arnold we were used to? No. But he got in pretty good shape in 10 to 12 weeks, whatever it was. And that's the kind of stuff that I could do. So I was the kind of guy, like when Mike Mentor and I competed in Us Against the World, whatever it was, and hell, after that show, I kept eating. I blew up like a balloon. I looked like you couldn't even see my eyes. I swelled so much. And that's what would happen when you get on these low carbs diet. So I always had a super reaction. I could lose a lot of weight and gain a lot of weight. I was that guy.
Wow, so there you have it. That was Danny Padilla revealing his exact training and diet that got him shredded for the 81 Olympia. I have to admit that interview with Danny was an absolute eye-opener. I will reveal, of course, more of it in future videos too. If we analyze his training prior to the Olympia, Danny states that prior to starting his cutting phase, he would be training each body part twice a week, using his basic mass gaining triple split routine, which of course was his famous push-pull legs routine, which I have covered in previous videos, and he would of course be eating good healthy meals. For his cutting phase, He would train each body part 3 times a week. Again, I've talked about this in the past. Again, eating good healthy meals and not really counting calories because, as he puts it, one would need calories and one can't be starving doing such a tough routine. At least that's what he believed back then. For his previous shows, that is previous to the 1981 Mr. Olympia, Danny reveals that he would only cut up 2 to 3 weeks out. However, for the 81 Olympia, Danny thought he would try something different. This time he experimented with a longer prep time, and he used higher carbs in his preparation and only moderate protein, unlike his previous preps. Danny incorporated cardio as well, performing 15-mile runs and riding back on his bike for 15 miles, and such extreme workouts would have him ingesting up to 30 cups of yogurt post-workout. For the 81 Olympia, Danny decided to begin cutting 2 to 3 months out from competing. Danny performed his double split routine, that is, training each body part 3 times a week, training 6 days a week, and along with cardio. Training with weights was mostly pumping sets, as he describes, choosing not to go heavy. I mean, how could you, training 6 days a week, training each body part 3 times a week? I'm pretty sure that nobody could really handle heavy weights with such a heavy training routine. Danny's diet consisted of fruits, vegetables, and only 100 to 110 grams of protein a day, but with sufficient carbs. Danny claims to have eaten hundreds of carbs daily, consisting of brown rice with beans, yogurt, and baked potatoes. However, during the last 3 to 4 weeks before the 1981 Mr. Olympia competition, Danny decided to home in on his diet. After most of the work was done, he would run only 1 mile when doing cardio, and only trained each body part 2 times a week, training on his original triple split push-pull legs routine. Danny's protein of choice was mostly fish and chicken, and he did eat some beef once a week to maintain his body mass. To really dial in, Danny began to control his calories 21 days out of competition, initially having 3,000 calories daily, then dropping down to 2,500 calories, and then 2,000 calories. During the last 2 weeks, he dropped his calories down to 1,500, and then 8 days out, Danny dropped his calories to just 900 up to 1,000 calories a day. During this time, Danny did not work out, as most of the work was already done, and he just walked around drinking plenty of water and literally starving. During this last week, Danny starved on 500 calories of carbs and 500 calories of protein to lose every ounce of fat that he could. His diet, as he describes, is as follows. He would have coffee first thing in the morning. Then his breakfast would consist of half a cup of farina oats, 3 peaches, and half a cup of egg whites. Lunch would consist of fish or chicken with salad. He would then have a snack of just 1 egg, and his dinner would be 200 grams of canned tuna with salad as well. Between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., he didn't eat at all. Basically, he was treating these last few days like a fast, and he only claims he adjusted after 48 hours, after a maddening 48 hours. He would also, of course, drink lots of water during this final cutting phase. After this starvation process, Danny was down to 154 pounds in body weight, and 4 days out of the Olympia, Danny realized he had dropped his body fat enough and decided to finally begin eating to gain muscular weight again, and he decided to do this by carbing up. And at that point, Danny describes how his metabolism literally took off like a rocket. As he carved up, his body weight rose from 154 pounds to 178 pounds, gaining 24 pounds in 4 days, coming into the 1981 Olympia competition at 178 pounds and ripped to the bone. As Danny states, he was much like Arnold and would have a super reaction to both diet and the product regimen he would undertake. And this product regimen and a discussion of his cycle will be the topic of several future videos. The result? Well, Danny came into the 1981 Olympia ripped to shreds. Most of the competitors that night didn't even recognize Danny. His vacuum shots were so insane that his cheeks would cave in to the point where you could see all his skeletal structure on his face, for God's sake. That's how depleted he was. These pictures, of course, speak 1,000 words. Of course, Danny went on to be awarded a disgraceful 5th place. I mean, it's just disgraceful, isn't it? In what is to this day considered the most controversial Olympia of all time. The 1981 Olympia contest was called the greatest booing contest in history, and it is no surprise. Franco went on to win with no cuts in his legs and gynecomastia to boot. Nevertheless, the package Danny presented at the Olympia was, in the opinion of many, including myself, one of the best that night and surely deserving of the title. So I do hope you have enjoyed this interview with Danny Padilla. He has been so generous with describing every detail about his Olympia prep that I believe this is probably the first time he has ever gone into so much detail on the subject. If you have enjoyed the video, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet, and leave me your comments. I am sure there will be many of you giving comments in this still very much debated competition. As mentioned, I will be sharing more of my interviews with Danny, including the cycles he took and much more, so stay tuned. Anyway, that's it from me. Hope you enjoyed the video. This is the Golden Era Bookworm saying bye for now. Now, if you're interested in learning more about Danny Padilla's bodybuilding programs, he produced 4 booklets which I am now selling through my website as ebooks, through my collaboration, of course, with Danny, including Plan to Win, my system for successful bodybuilding, as well as chest and back, shoulders and arms, and legs and abdominals, which tend to be more specialization courses. These booklets are filled with awesome knowledge from one of the bodybuilding greats, with my personal favorite being Plan to Win. This booklet is awesome. Now, these 4 booklets are some of the most honest booklets I have ever read, because in these booklets, Danny teaches you the importance of goal setting and describes the important differences between what makes a novice, intermediate, and advanced bodybuilder and what it takes to get there. All available at www.goldenerabookworm.com. To support your favorite YouTube channel, please visit teespring.com/stores/goldenerabookworm for merchandise including t-shirts, hoodies, face masks, phone cases, and much, much more. Once again at teespring.com/stores/goldenerabookworm. Become a patron at www.patreon.com/goldenerabookworm for hard to find books, scans of rare photos, and articles on the golden era of bodybuilding. To take full advantage of my collaborations, use code GEB20 with nspnutrition.com and vincegeronda.com, as well as code bookworm12 at osl.com for a discount at checkout.